Okay, I believe we're live. Welcome, everybody. So, WWDC just happened, and this is going to be our little after discussion. Let me just start with this. What are you guys on right now, Mac or PC?
Oh, Mac.
PC.
Mac.
Okay, I believe we're live. Mac here. Welcome, everybody. Oh, I gotta mute this. Yeah, Mac here too. Okay. So we have that established. By the way, for all the guests, welcome to this post discussion. And we're gonna have one, maybe even two more people join us in a few minutes here. So we'll see. We'll just handle it as we go. But let's get the discussion going here, guys. I'll take care of the technical stuff here. I have a few more setup things. Maybe let's just talk about it. I think there's three big topics. It's like their on-device model. It's the ChatGPT integration, and then it's what they're allowing devs to do with it. Because I was surprised by how much they opened it up in their announcement. So what do you guys make of all the on-device features?
I was so shocked to see how much AI they are actually working on. That's just actual Apple AI that runs locally on the Apple Silicon. I mean, that was really surprising to me. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that, and now it's like, okay, if most people have outdated iPhones, most people don't have the 15 Pro or whatever. So, how many people are really going to get access that aren't spending tons of money, right?
Well, that my friend is the Apple way right there. Is the planned obsolescence of they have been needing a reason for somebody to buy a new iPhone for quite a bit. I think I was joking about this earlier to iPhone users who may be watching, or Dylan, do you have an iPhone as well?
Yeah, no, I'm all Apple.
Yeah. Do you even know what iPhone you actually have? Like what the model number is?
Oh, the model. I mean, it's 14 Pro Max.
Okay, so you do know. Okay, so I mean, most people I think have lost track of like what iPhone they actually have. Like, it's like
my
ever
friends
since
have.
the button went away. I mean, no one knows anymore. So, they've been needing a reason to do that, to have a reason to upgrade, and I think they've got a pretty valid one here.
Well, I would argue like one of the most interesting things about having Apple Silicon on the phone and with the new MacBook Pro and actually a cloud server. I mean, this is the first time I've heard of a huge, like serious build in the cloud on Silicon and using Swift as the programming language. It's just probably the most tightly coupled system I've ever seen for an AI model to live on.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That was really surprising. I was like, wait, is like this ChatGPT running through Swift? I was like, no way, right? I just didn't believe that Apple actually was developing their own models of this caliber, but they appear to be pretty good. We will only know once we actually get access, though.
Yeah. So
did you guys expect OpenAI to show up in the feed like that? Like, were you surprised that they actually mentioned the company by name instead of keeping it below the surface?
Yeah, I was.
Oh no, I actually expected there to be more. I mean, rumors were flying around all day that Sam was present. I really expected and one more thing moment, and here comes Sam, because Sam's been kind of quiet lately. We haven't really seen him out and around. It's been a lot of Mira lately. So yeah. I really thought that this was going to be as big, like just puff of smoke, and then there's Sam.
Yeah, I think he likes under a lot of scrutiny. Yeah.
Where I think Apple kind of likes to distance themselves as much as physically possible from stuff like that. They want it like, oh, this is all Apple, this is all us. So I think that probably pains them to have to put OpenAI's logo up there and say like, hey, it can access ChatGPT. You know what I mean? Well, I think they like to keep it to themselves.
There was a WWDC a while back when like Verizon came out. They had Verizon reps out, so it wouldn't have been unprecedented. But yeah, you're right. They generally like to keep everything in house. Like it's the Apple brand, right?
Yeah, or rename everything. It's like Apple Intelligence, and it's like the Genmoji. I'm like, okay, it's just like, okay, it's an emoji, it's generative. Okay, I get it, but it's all branded so hard.
I love Apple Intelligence as AI as a way of getting around saying, like, because they've been so dodgy with not wanting to say AI as artificial intelligence. So whoever in the Apple marketing department came up with that very obvious, name. I mean, I hope that they got a promotion out of that one.
Wow. Yeah.
So maybe before we get into like some of the details here, I have a lot of notes here on concrete things and the actions, the various actions they're introducing, and the developer tooling and etc. Before we get into all these details, just overall feeling, were you guys, did you think this was a disappointing event, or were you surprised by how much they shared?
I was super impressed. I think it was quite a bit more than I expected, especially after that first hour. I'm like, man, these guys have really lost in the battle of the big tech companies. And then I felt like they mounted a really good comeback. So I think they're still in the running.
I think there was a lot of stuff in that first hour that felt like there were a lot of things that they needed to do to catch up, essentially. Like, I mean, a lot of the announcements that they made, like the fact that you can now move your icons around on, on your phone. I mean, I think every Android user just kind of laughed at that one. And things like in the Apple TV thing where they brought up, like you can scroll down and see what actors are in that. That's something that Amazon Prime has had forever. So there's a lot of like little quality of update things that they had to do just to get up to spec, a lot of the other companies. Past that, yeah, I mean, like once we started to get into the Apple Intelligence stuff, that's when I think everybody perked up, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that for me, honestly, like I'm not especially equipped with the knowledge for what Apple is missing in comparison to Android, for example, and all of that platform stuff. So the first hour or whatever, I was pretty bored. I was sitting through it like, okay, yeah, some new features that I'm maybe going to use once or twice. But when they got to the AI part, the part that actually shocked me the most, and the part that actually impressed me, was the actions and the fact that it can actually go in, do things for you in an automated sense. And I'm really curious to see how well that actually all works. The spatial recognition of what's on your phone, and taking the knowledge and applying it into a new app, and how it might work with third-party apps versus the Apple native stuff. Like I feel like there's a lot of wiggle room for it to be both very good and very bad. And I don't know, it just seems like they really took the whole R1 concept and actually made it real. But again, we don't have our hands on this stuff, so we don't know. It could be a total flop, but I feel like Apple is pretty reliable in terms of delivering on what they promise. So I'm excited. I think in that sense it was impressive.
So here's one thing to consider. A lot of these actions are accessible not just today, but since a few years already. They have something called Siri shortcuts, and basically that is tooling on the phone that allows you to do a lot of these things like folder creation and creating new notes and stuff. So these integrations have been there. It's just accessing them has been a bit of a pain, and the Siri integration was never what most people hoped for it to be. I remember last year I researched a video on like 10, Siri shortcuts that you can build, and I never released it. Ooh, we have a new guest here. I'm just gonna loop him in. But I never like released it because I just never found myself using those shortcuts that I created there. You could even use like ChatGPT with it to do some steps. But this feels like they're bringing it together here. Wait,
that was one thing, and I do like while you're bringing somebody in there.
Yeah. Let's just do this.
Just keep it going
here.
Wait, I think that I was actually a little surprised that the ChatGPT integration wasn't actually deeper, and I understand why. Actually, as we were watching it, it was like, obviously Apple wants to keep Siri as their forefront model, so it feels like what we're going to be doing a lot of is asking Siri a question and then constantly hitting that. You can ask that to ChatGPT. You know what I mean? I feel that that's going to be a button that is, we're going to be spamming a lot. Unless do you think Siri has gotten that much better? I don't know.
Do you think even like will we have the option on older phones and older devices to even just ping ChatGPT instead entirely? Probably not, right? It feels like they're kind of using the whole privacy where it's like, oh, this all has to run locally, and sometimes it goes to our secure Apple Silicon server. You think that's kind of just a scapegoat for being like, all right, you guys have to buy new iPhones, you have to buy a new iPad, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think so. I mean, obviously ChatGPT is still very accessible via the what is happening here?
Yeah, sorry, I'm shuffling things around a little bit. It seems to be your camera as a link, but please just keep talking, and I'll manage this meanwhile.
I would have talked to myself
somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Billowalt is here, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's in the house. It's just,
Hey, what's popping, y'all?
Hi,
Nice.
Maddox.
Well,
There you
oh,
go.
yeah,
Hey.
stream now.
Hey,
Hey,
welcome.
let me jump in on the convo and say exactly
Please.
like all the rumors and press basically, made it seem like Apple doesn't have their house in order. Like they're going to have to lean heavily on some third-party provider. And it looks like the vast majority of what we saw is basically in-house, right? Like the semantic index stuff, the language model, even the image generation stuff that happens on device. Initially, I was like, oh, this kind of looks like DALL-E 3. Is it? Obviously, they have, like, I don't know what model. Is it like a license thing? Is it truly in-house? But it seems like they built a lot more in-house than we all expected. Because, like, I already have my action button on my iPhone goes to ChatGPT, and this just felt like a step above that. And saying that other language models will be supported in the future is sort of like how they treat search. Maybe Gemini and Claude will be options in the future as well. So hats off to Apple. It's like they actually did have their house in order.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind too, if
competitive.
you can take a model, if you take something like a Llama 3 or something, if they have an actual deal with OpenAI to take a model and run it locally or adapt it to their silicon and keep it contained, it's not making a call outside of their system. So it could be not their model, but it could also be completely controlled by Apple.
Totally. Something distilled that's running purely on device. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a lot of it isn't their own technology necessarily, and it's all adapted. And because I feel like maybe they would brag about it a little bit more if it was all developed by them. Maybe they would have some sort of coin name for it, their own Chat GPT competitor. But it sounds like they haven't caught up to that echelon level that OpenAI is at just yet. So they're not that confident in their AI as it being like this top notch, like, all right, we're coming after you, Meta, we're coming after you, Google, we're coming after you, OpenAI. It's more of like we're just applying AI to our ecosystem, and that's how we're going to wipe you out instead.
Yeah.
They did coin Apple Intelligence, right?
Yes.
And they also said AI for the rest of us, which I thought was an interesting catchphrase.
That was
I
weird.
noted that too.
Yeah, it's for the people who don't watch our content, huh? That's what they meant.
I did like the Matt Wolf in the comment pointed this out as well, that in the image generation that you can do image generations of people from your contacts. I actually thought that was kind of cool, but as Matt points out, it's all done in a cartoon or illustrative style. Like they're not going to allow you to do anything photorealistic there, which totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But just the idea of like essentially being able to, because of that level of integration of like, an image generator along with all of your contacts, you can now, meme all of your friends.
That's what we needed.
What was the emoji one? Genmoji. There we go.
Genmoji.
Genmoji,
yes.
yeah.
Let's talk about Genmoji, everybody. What do you think of that? You're going to have custom emoji. I think that's actually kind of a win. I mean, Apple Intelligence is a bit cringe, I got to be honest. But like Genmoji, that's kind of cute. I mean, you can create your custom emojis with AI. Did they just find the first proper use case for AI image generation? Is it this? is it custom emojis? Oh, obviously joking.
I think in Instagram, Meta has their own kind of Genmoji style thing. I mean, the image generator doesn't look nearly as impressive in Instagram and Messenger, etc., and all those Meta platforms than it does in what we just saw from Apple. But it's definitely not, I would say, a new concept, but it looks like they did it better than everyone else that I've seen.
And like Apple emojis have an aesthetic to it, right? Everyone loves using the Apple rendition of the emojis versus like, I mean, I've got an Android phone too, but I don't like the aesthetics on like Windows and Android. So yeah, it's like Apple's got this veneer of just polished everything. Like it's the secret sauce to me is all like the semantic context stuff that they kind of glossed over. Cause whether it's their like on device models or ChatGPT, like when they gave the example of the Notes app, where like, oh, I want to drop an image in here. Like the system will automatically give the context of what other text and what other visuals are in that node to prompt whatever model you use. Seems amazing. And it's particularly cool because like, I feel like that's what Microsoft was trying to do with AI recall. And obviously they got a huge backlash because like, how is semantic index computed? That's what I was left wondering. Is this your phone like running like when you're sleeping on device?
Or is it literally just like screenshots and like a constant recording?
Yeah, exactly. But they don't say that, right?
Yeah.
And there's a nice Apple privacy lock. So everyone's like, oh, it's cool. It's Apple. It's all good.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. That was probably like the biggest question I was left with in terms of I wrote down some quotes here. Can you hear me? I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, they said a few things like privacy you control. Okay, that's obviously the consumer facing one. But how do you push things to the cloud that is never stored and fully verifiable? That's a I don't know. That's the big question.
That whole thing
People
about
are gonna check their homework.
like independently, like experts will be independently verifying, or else it won't even connect with something I really wanted to dive into more.
So it's open sourced? Are they saying that? Sort of? In like consumer
I don't
lingo?
think so.
Yeah.
They would have said that, huh?
I mean, they rebranded confidential computing, right? Like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that term. It's like the term they used was, I'm pulling up my notes here, was like, like confidential computing seems to be what they were talking about. But of course, like if they're rebranding AI to be Apple Intelligence, they're going to do this too. And it has to be doing some stuff in the cloud, because the part where they're like, oh, if you're in your Photos app and you want to pull up that one video clip where so-and-so was like walking in front of something, and you want to like query some, like it'll tell you the part of the video some moment happened. I'd be insane if they're doing all of that on device, right? Like clearly then my phone would, or my Mac would be working overnight. So maybe that's where they're doing it on iCloud, but dude, it's like, if you're going to have a semantic index that spans everything you do on iOS, like I think it has the same privacy concerns that people have with Microsoft.
When you hear the word semantic index, what do you think that is? Is it like a RAG model? Is it like a vector database? Or is it something else, like something more like recall, where it's a long history and memory of what you've done?
I'm thinking it's like creating embeddings for everything, all your content, right? Like all your emails, all your messages, everything. Sometimes it's doing it on the fly, or it's doing clearly with images and video too. And then you can use that to search over it, right?
So they create embeddings for every video you have on your device, I guess.
Seems like it. Yeah. How else would they do it?
That's wild.
My camera roll is fat, so it's just like watching. I'm like, how are they gonna pull this off? You know, like it seems like a tall order.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, I guess it would almost be like a fine-tuned model of just all your data. It would just be like all Mavic Pro photos ran through a little model on your own device, I guess, your own brain.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting to see how they pull things off, or if they'll even tell us in the future. I mean, if it works like magic, it works like magic, and we can't really complain. Apple has been known to be pretty good at that kind of a thing in the past, where it just works and you don't even have to think about it, right?
That's what they do.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So what about the fact of how much of it they opened up to developers? I would have never expected for them to give all of these, like, third-party photo editing apps can integrate all of this. Like, that is surprising. That's not very Apple-esque.
I think that they want to win over as the ecosystem that supports AI the best. I think that's why they're doing that, is they want to make sure that like all the developers, you know, they're like, okay, the Apple has the best AI ecosystem, so we want to build something that's AI integrated. We want to upgrade our app with AI. We're going to do it on Apple first. You know, I think that's kind of the goal, is to try to get ahead in that sense, because Apple's ecosystem is like where their value lies entirely, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to make apps that don't need to use cloud computing, right? Like if you can just use on-device image models and like summarization and all this stuff, like all these apps that are probably getting FOMO about like, holy crap, do I go cut a big deal with Claude, you know, frickin' Google or OpenAI can just start leaning on the compute you have on your various devices too. And just infuse AI magically into the apps you use every day.
And maybe this is just me reading into it, but I feel like after watching the presentation, they didn't say this, but it felt like they are open to introducing more models, right? They're starting with ChatGPT as an external one, but because it's sort of like state of the art when it comes to consumer use cases. But it seemed like down the line, they will just support anything that's out there.
I wonder if that's something that you'll be able to find in your settings, like, talk to Siri. If Siri doesn't have the answer, you hit the button, and in your settings, you could have chosen, ChatGPT, Claude, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you can point it to almost like that's your default search engine. Now you have a default AI that you can use. You know, the other thing I was surprised about, speaking of on the developer and partnership side of it, was actually earlier on the Vision OS stuff. I was actually surprised to see Blackmagic pop up there, as I was like, hey, not Adobe, huh?
It's like, and they showed the camera. So I don't know if y'all, for a brief frame, they flashed this Blackmagic camera rig.
Yep.
And so a lot of the rumors leading up to a bunch of these videos coming out was that, all the previous in the wild photos were either the Canon camera rig, like the Canon, the predecessor to the lens that they showed, which is how some of the music videos, the Alicia Keys one, for example, is captured with that. But the rumor mill was basically that Apple built their own Blackmagic camera based setup. And I guess we got the first glimpse of that. Yeah. Plus Final Cut's going to get spatial editing support. And now it looks like Blackmagic's going to be the other option. So it's like, yeah, it kind of sucks for Adobe. Like, I'm still stuck in Adobe land. And Adobe's like a millennial with back pain, it just like freaking crashes every little while. And it's like, it kind of sucks because they supported a bunch of video stuff back in the VR 180 days for YouTube and things like that. So it's a kind of a L on Adobe's part, but I guess Blackmagic is kind of crushing it and seems to be very popular. I don't know. How many of y'all edit and Resolve, out of curiosity?
Not me. I'm in Premiere still, so I'm still locked into my Creative Cloud subscription. So, and anytime that I try to hop over to DaVinci, it just slows me down. So, because I just need to spend a week just like living in Resolve land in order to make the hump over.
I'm doing fine with that.
Yeah. Are you a Final Cut guy? Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Your exports must be fast, dude.
Yeah, for sure. On Apple Silicon, I love it. Yeah, H.264 and the HEVC formats both export pretty well, I think. But I understand I don't have the same kind of capabilities that you can get with Premiere, but works for me. Simple editing.
It's funny on the Adobe side because, obviously, Apple made got some pretty good digs at Microsoft with the privacy stuff, and Adobe did have some issues with that this week as well, or was it last week? I guess update to the terms of service.
Yeah. There's been like a bunch of memes on Twitter about it. People are complaining. I remember opening up Photoshop and seeing the notification, just clicking, whatever. Like, I got to make a thumbnail.
Yeah, it's like, I think everyone's especially mad at Adobe because it's like, oh yeah, our terms of service let us do all of this stuff, but look at our blog. Our blog says otherwise, and it's like, that's not a legally binding contract. Like, what do you mean you're pointing us to a blog? But it sounds like they're going to make some TOS updates, which perhaps begs the question: how did Apple train this image generation model? Like, what imagery did they use?
Right.
Yeah, or did they use someone else's database? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2024, putting together an image generator like this is not, you don't need to be, the second largest company in the world to do that. I think it's pretty, let's talk about that. Like the limited styles. I know Matt Wolf, he mentioned this in chat recently, but there's just free styles, right? And this is something that didn't occur to me initially, but they avoided the topic of, deepfakes completely by not even including photorealistic stuff. Plus, seeing some of the open source models that they released a few months ago, and then this one, I don't think they could, even if they wanted to, compete with Midjourney and the likes. So they just kept it basic, but some nice UI features. I don't even know if they
really need to.
You see the circling?
That's AI for the rest of us, I guess. Like just cartoons.
They're definitely picking their battles, in the sense like, oh, we don't have to be competitive with Google or some of these top leading AI companies if we just don't bother competing, because we can compete on our own level, on this physical hardware level and software level for that physical hardware ecosystem.
Build your website today with GoDaddy.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's almost like they accrue a lot of the value, right? Because no matter what happens, it's happening on their OS, right? And it sounds like they'll sandbox or prevent as much data sharing with these providers as possible. And I think it's just like, it's going to be interesting to see how this one pans out. It is funny that they weren't afraid to deep fake your handwriting, because if you noticed in the hand demo, it's like, oh yeah, it'll write it in your style. And I think was it the last Apple event or the one before that where they showed you could create like a little deep fake version of your voice? Basically, it kind of sounded shitty compared to 11 Labs or something like that. But yeah, no photorealism, which is why I thought it was like, it looked very DALL-E 3-esque, like the aesthetic initially. Then again, they have come up like, AI advantage to your point. Like they come up with, they publish papers and been supporting stable diffusion on device as well. So I don't know if it's like a fine-tuned version of SD or whatever it is. But yeah, like it seems like even DALL-E 3 stays away from photorealism as much as possible.
Yeah, seems to be the safe move.
Yeah, having that kind of technology like right in there on my messages, I think is going to be something I'm going to have to get used to. Like actually just saying like, hey, pull that contact information out, put it in my calendar, prioritized notifications. Like that seemed interesting if it works, because every time my phone beeps at me, I really don't want to look at it. But I do know sometimes in some context, I do want it to notify me, and maybe it could learn that.
There is a lot of stuff in that. As somebody that is very, Apple ecosystem, I have, my iPhone here. I'm wearing the stupid watch, and I have my Mac, and I've even got an Apple TV downstairs. So I'm whole hog into the wall, right into the walled garden. But there was a lot of stuff in there that was genuinely like things that only Apple can do, like the mirroring of your phone onto your desktop. Like that's actually something that will probably be fairly helpful to me at some point or another. So what else? I had a couple of other, like the Snoopy screensaver is stupid. Like, I mean, I don't know why, why we keep going there, but whatever. Yeah,
Apple's only the type of company to give screen time to screensavers. But to your point very quickly about the, I thought it was really interesting to have the ability to pull up your iPhone. Like a lot of creators, how it's like conventional wisdom that you need to post natively from the native app because there's a lot more functionality. I'm like, what if I can just be like, all right, post this on Instagram, put this metadata in there, check these things, and their like large action model equivalent can do that for us. Holy crap, that's going to be amazing for creators. Yeah.
One update away.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what developers end up doing with it. I mean, all those different APIs and everything, like there could be some pretty creative, crazy apps that can do quite a lot for you that you just weren't able to conceive of before. I mean, even back in the day when the iPhone first became popular with the App Store, there was like all these different little apps that we now had access to wherever we were that we thought were only really accessible on a computer, or even brand new stuff that had never come out before. So this might be like the new kind of era for the local AI on your phone doing things that you just never thought were possible.
Yeah, you know what, Matt? There might even be like an entire marketplace that pops up, and it might be kind of temporary, but it's like the same way people were selling a lot of like great prompts that were really helpful. Maybe there will be something like that with actions. Like, oh, if you really want to post on social media, I can give you this one script, and it has all your iPhone actions, and it gets metadata from here, and then it pulls up Instagram, and then it grabs an image from here, and then it posts it for you in this really unique combination, and I'll sell it to you for like $10 or something, Mm-hmm. So maybe there'll be like a whole new little system about how things interact that we've never seen before.
I mean, go pull up Uber and Lyft and tell me the cheapest price and keep periodically pulling it up.
Yeah.
There you go. I'd pay 10 cents for it right now,
The one thing that I was a little disappointed with was that they did not upgrade the Siri voice. And I think that's coming out of like the OpenAI Spring event, like in hearing, bubbly Scarlett Johansson, ChatGPT. Like I was really hoping honestly, when they started this segment up on Siri, the voice sounded flat. It sounded like Siri, like boring again. I was really hoping that, and maybe that's something that we'll see as it comes out, just a little more inflection. You know what I mean? It just kind of still sounds like Alexa right now.
Honestly, I think that they're probably working on their own model to do that, similar to OpenAI, like what we just saw with OpenAI's announcement. And I really don't think they want to lean on OpenAI too much. I really think they're trying to avoid doing it, but they know like, okay, we don't have the same image recognition capabilities that OpenAI has. We don't have the same text generation capabilities, so we do have to lean on them somewhat. And I think that they were like, all right, our Siri works good enough. We'll just keep it the same for now. Maybe in a year's time or something, they'll have their own model that sounds very human, for example. And I think they're also a little bit wary because there was just like this whole, Scarlett Johansson lawsuit thing. Maybe they're trying to kind of keep their hands clean from that, right?
Maybe. I ran a little poll here in chat, by the way. I asked the viewers here, how do you feel about WWDC? And 56% of the people said they're impressed, and 43% said they're disappointed. If I had to guess, the disappointment comes probably from this expectation of hearing ScarJo's voice in Siri from the 4.0 event. So I hope it comes. We also had a comment here pointing out that most of the feature state. Wait. Go road mode should here, this comment. If you switch the voice settings in iOS to number 4 American Girl, it's very much like OpenAI. So that's a little tip for anybody looking for a new Siri voice.
Truthfully, I have not used Siri in such a long time that
I turned it off.
Turned it off. So I will definitely do number 4 voice when I turn it.
Wait, how do y'all set timers and alarms then? Manually?
I have fingers.
Yeah,
your thumbs, your poor thumbs.
Yeah, I use the stupid watch. I scroll down on the stupid watch and do it that way. So, because I've tried doing Siri on the watch, like I'm like Michael Knight in Knight Rider. Is that I'm really aging myself there, aren't I?
No,
there was a TV show in the '80s, kids, called Knight Rider. I think Billy's the only one that might know it. Where the character talked to his watch. But I mean, every time I've tried, it's just. More often than not, I actually end up accidentally hitting the Siri button because my fat wrist just clicks the action button. So stupid fat wrist. Sorry. Okay.
Tim, to your point, it's not even just about the voice. It's the intonation thing that you mentioned, right? Like a lot of people felt like the ChatGPT demo of Sky was like, it's like your phone is rizzing you. Like, I don't want my phone to be rizzing me. It was like, just be a utility, please. Just, and I think maybe that's like an actual design decision because even Google's what's it called, Project Astra, sounded way more matter of fact and like assistive than who, me? Are you about to announce something about me? Like, it's like, oh gosh.
I mean, let's not get into this topic. I think at least for now, but I actually think like OpenAI is a god tier marketing company, and people don't even realize it. People don't give enough credit to Sam for like how he is at PR and like marketing messages. I feel a lot of the controversy and drama that has been happening over the last year. I would bet anything that not 100% of it is authentic. Some of that is premeditated, I think, and a lot of these announcements, that decision to create, like an AI girlfriend type voice, it's a very conscious decision that's gonna create a lot of waves and controversy. Maybe they even did the ScarJo outreach on purpose. I don't know. That's just like conspiracy theories, to be honest. But it's powerful stuff if you see it like that in action. But back on topic here. I think the number one thing in chat here that is being pointed out is how fluent the integration is and how good the integration is. And I would even go as far as saying I think this is the best integration of like AI functionality into a consumer product to date. What do you guys make of that? Of the different little interfaces, of the glowing of the screen, of the just like selecting text and having 3 or 4 options. That's it. No custom prompting, nothing like that. What do you think of the integration into iOS? And what do you make of it coming to 1 billion people here soon?
Again, Apple will take their time with stuff, but when they actually do integrate it, it usually works pretty flawlessly, and it's always Apple's rendition of it. It's their clean ecosystem that just makes you feel at home, and everything's so easy and simple and fluid, right? So I mean, I'm not surprised that this is the level of integration that they achieved, but I will say that I'm happy about it, right? It's what I was expecting, and I hope when I use it, it does work well. I'm just worried that I have to buy a new freaking phone to actually get access to it.
Yeah. RIP Grammarly, like all these other little apps and extensions to give you LLMs in context. Like, I think I'm not going to use them anymore, especially if it is as good. I think folks in the chat are saying like, how good is the summarization and the suggestions, right? Like, I think that'll be the true litmus test.
To be fair, having a more specialized model that does only summarization and basic rewriting will be better at that than a general purpose model like GPT-4o that does it all. I think there's a good chance of that, that it's at least equally as good. There were 3 buttons there, I believe. 3, maybe 2 more. But, I personally hope that there's like an option in the settings where you can turn on custom prompts. I don't think so, at least not initially, probably for ChatGPT. But they had like shorten, make it more professional, more conversational, and then you could run a summary and maybe one more thing. That's it. So if you're that limited, you can fine-tune the entire thing to work for those use cases. That's it. So I think it's going to be pretty good. I don't think Apple would be shipping some, GPT-2 level model.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Oh, sorry. You could go. You could go ahead.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say, like, I was kind of curious. It would be interesting to sit in one of those meetings and see how agent-based they're thinking about the future of these systems. Because, yeah, maybe they are separate, like writing summarization tools and Genmoji tools that are running on device, and they're each going to have their own kind of evolutionary story. But instead of just one big generative like partnership with OpenAI or something.
Definitely feels like a federation of models. Yeah, feels like that.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I mean, Apple's probably the only one that, because they are, hardware, software, like entertainment platforms, they have like so much stuff in the ecosystem. It'll be interesting to see how far you can push that agent integration as well. Like, can I, tell Siri, I need to get caught up on or what episode did I stop watching Foundation on? Like, can you summarize everything that I watched up until, because it's been like 3 months since I've seen that. And then, well, I guess maybe not. Can you recommend me a movie that is like Foundation? Can you now buy it for me on my Apple TV and start playing it immediately? You know what I mean? Like, I wonder how much of that is going to, how much
the credit cards on file.
Yeah, how much you're going to be able to play in their overall ecosystem. It'll be interesting.
Yeah,
it is. Really quickly building on Tim's point, they showed that Amazon X-ray like functionality, right, where you could detect the different celebrities and find interesting jumping off points. So it's like that same sort of semantic index is coming to at least like a chunk of their library of their content. And yeah, like the actions thing is so interesting. Like RIP Rabbit. I mean, Rabbit was kind of a I think they fumbled their launch for many reasons, but the idea was
dead
cool.
on arrival.
And everyone said your iPhone should be able to do this. And the idea that you can kind of orchestrate automations, and Apple's already had really good automations. Like a lot of people set up like QR codes that you can, or NFC tags that you can scan to do different types of automations and things like that. So like that building layer is already there. And now you can just do it across apps. That's going to be so freaking cool and powerful. I'm eager to see how Android responds to that, because Android does have Gemini. You can swap it out as an assistant, and you can use it to create a calendar entry and stuff like that. But this feels so much more plugged in to everything else that you do that it might just be way more powerful.
Yeah,
how about text? Oh, sorry. How about text via satellite? I mean, that was at the top, but does anybody else do that? I mean, that's insane, right? The fact that you will be able to text anywhere in the world now via satellite, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of provide my perspective here, because I am an Apple user. I have an iPhone, right? But I have a PC for all my editing, and I do the majority of my work on non-Apple devices. But I'm thinking, if the AI integration is the best on Apple, purely the best. It can go from my phone right to an Apple PC that I have set up here, and I can have it automatically do actions for me, automatically check my emails, and then convert things over into calendar events and manage it all for me. And I can kind of just talk to it like this futuristic robot. This isn't necessarily everything that they announced today, but if they continue to build upon what they announced today and continue to be, let's say, the leader in AI automation on their ecosystem, then that would make me switch over for sure. If they are the king in that space, and Windows and Android don't react as well, they kind of rush things a little bit more, because that's what I feel like happened. I mean, at least with the Google Gemini integration into the Android, right? It feels like a little bit more rushed in comparison to this Apple stuff. Like if Apple continues to build this the way that they are, I might have to switch and ditch PC, right? Yeah. I've had a PC for 10 years, but might have to get a Mac if they continue down this road.
Yeah, platform switching is going to be so hard. It's going to be like breaking up with someone. It'll be like a relationship issue in 5 years. It won't just be like, oh, I got to redo all my contacts and download my favorite apps. You'll be like, no, this thing has my memories. This thing is connected to my entire life. This knows how to talk to my parents on messages. Yeah, that's actually the system lock-in, the ecosystem lock-in might go to a whole new level with Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple now.
Yeah, I think that's where Apple knows their value is. They know it's like, let's make the ecosystem the best ecosystem so that no one wants to switch and they just have to buy our products forever, right? I think that's been the kind of their thing for a long time now, actually. But with AI, it's kind of continuing.
They now have a really, valid argument. As opposed to the last few years, it's like, hey, we're adding a fourth camera lens. Great. Like, nobody, who?
I saw one of the posts that was like comparing the rumored new iPhone versus the other one. Like, look how much better it is. And I was like, literally trying to pull out a magnifying glass to be like, what's different now? It's like, no, look at the edges. Yeah. Like, look, it's what the screen's way closer to the edges. I'm like, it's literally, you could skip like 2 years. And now, maybe there's like a genuine reason to use that on-device compute. I was really excited by a lot of the iPad stuff for that reason too. Is like, I just hope all of that works with my 2020 iPad Pro and Pencil. That was so cool. It was like the Khan Academy demo from like freaking the OpenAI event, except like all native. Cool. And the fact that you could change the variables and the plotting and the graph change dynamically, like it's going to be a huge boon for education. And maybe you can plug in GPT-4o there like seamlessly in your Notes app. Like, how cool is that?
That looked like some straight science fiction stuff. That was really, really cool.
I will admit, because that was in the rumor mill, that we were going to see calculator on the iPad, and I like leading into it. I was just like, "What?" I mean, like, really, what are they going to do there? And as soon as they started up, I was like groaning. I think it was Jenny something or another. I was like, "Oh, that's like she must have drawn a really short stick there to be the one to introduce calculator on the iPad." But as it went on, I was like, "Wow, no, this is actually genuinely impressive." Yeah. So good job, like to them for making calculators interesting.
I agree. I want to highlight some comments here from some of the viewers. Multiple comments saying the same thing along the lines of, "Oh yes, Gemini is a terrible assistant on my Pixel." From Blue Sailor, Mercury, and then there's one more from Reality Drift. "Gemini angers me every time I try to use it on my Pixel." I've heard this opinion many times. I don't have a Pixel myself, but this seems to be the consensus. A lot of people use it. A lot of people are pissed off at it. And I think that's the thing. It's not that easy to integrate these things. As has been pointed out on here, this automation layer has been present since years, and it's working. It's just the user interface is not that great. And putting LLMs on top of it makes the user interface great. Plus, sprinkle a little bit of glowing edges on top, and you have something that you might want to use.
Even the image generation UI was so cool, where it's like we have these floating elements and then we can combine them together, and like that's just such an intuitive way to do that. And it's like, leave it to Apple to figure something like that out, right? For sure. Man, I don't want to have to buy a new phone, but I think I might have to.
One thing we didn't see, at least I don't recall seeing it, we did not see anything that was desktop vision, right? There was no, there was nothing Siri, like it can see your desktop. The ChatGPT app for our desktop app for Mac supposedly, that can't do that yet, but it's supposedly on its way. Like we didn't see anything integrated there, did we? They kind of shied away from that, didn't they?
They said Mac OS though, but yeah, the demo showed the mostly stuff on iPhone and iPad, or it's like, oh yeah, add this address to this person's contact, and it was just showing an iPhone screen. But I would assume it'd work as such. Yeah, it's like what Recall wanted to do, except like it's funny how like such a drastically different way to roll out your product, right? Like Microsoft's like sharing intimate details of how it works. It's like, oh, we take intermittent screenshots every 5 seconds. It's on this like database, which ended up not being encrypted and in plain text. And meanwhile, Apple's just like, it has your contacts and says stuff like semantic index. Like, doesn't really bother to explain how it's happening, just what you can do with it.
They're just trying to avoid that conversation.
Yeah, there's a lock somewhere.
There's a lock somewhere. Yeah, I mean, it makes you feel good as a consumer, though. They're very good at marketing. I mean, Apple's the king at that, right?
Yeah, and the UI.
I mean, it kind of helps too. I mean, they're out of the big tech companies. It's nice that Apple doesn't make very much revenue, if any, from advertising. It's just a different way that they've built their whole company. I mean, at the end of the day, Microsoft's always got like LinkedIn and Bing to worry about, and of course Meta is built around a social network, and it seems to me like they really can double down on that, like privacy on device, edge computing, secure cloud system.
Well, it's that difference because like the Apple customer base is, you know, the client essentially in this. Like we're like that's we're the ones that pay for Apple, so they can't make us mad by, you know, selling our data essentially. Part of the reason why they lean so hard into the privacy thing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it
the
sounded really
perfect
promising.
excuse. So we need it needs to be private, so buy a new phone because you have to run it locally, guys.
Yep.
I mean, when you think about it, right? They took this, you know, perceived negative situation of, oh, you know, we need people to buy the new phone. It still needs to kind of be private to please our customers, and they turned it into a positive one. I think Apple's good at that. Apple's absolutely good at that.
So can we get clarity on one thing? I think this is a great opportunity with, you know, 230 viewers, 5 established people in the space, and we have also Matt Wolf in the chat sharing the availability of these models. I think they were very ambiguous on certain facts, and they gave a few data points on some others. I just want to, let's start this discussion off with Matt's comment here in chat saying, Apple Intelligence stuff only works on iPhone 15 Pro and newer iPads with an M1 or newer. And then for the computers, I believe it's all M chips and the A17 Pro processor that was on the last MacBook before. Can we, just everybody in chat, what do you guys think? Is this true? Can you guys double check that on the stream? I'm sure Matt did his homework here, but it would be great to get this right, because I remember on some previous announcements and stuff, some of our summary videos didn't entirely line up on the release schedule. It can be confusing, and they're not clear about it. You know, there was no table showing this stuff. OpenAI with the latest announcement, that was messy with, you know, knowing what's available when, and then availability too. I think they said beta in summer, and then everyone in September. Is that correct?
Fall, I think they said. Like it was just sort of like the general fall. Yeah.
See, like somebody
I just want to wait.
The people that are at the events will get hands-on with some of the demos, because it would be kind of lame if we're waiting for some like V2 beta release before people actually start getting hands-on with some of these capabilities. Yeah, it's like it does seem like iPads are in a better position. Like, so I guess you need the newer iPhone, but yeah, like the iPads were always overpowered. The M1 is like already an absurd chip for a frickin', it's still an absurd chip for a tablet. So I'm personally glad I don't need to update my 2020 iPad, though. I was naively hoping, to your point about how Apple makes its money, is like the new pencil came out. I was like, oh, I'll just get the new pencil and it'll probably work with my old iPad. No, we need to change like how the magnetic charger works. So like you need to get the new, you know, $1,500 iPad.
Like, I just wanted a pencil. Now I need a new Mac.
Yeah, it seems like their system for the AI, like, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but it seems to reward the more deep you are in the Apple ecosystem, it rewards you more. So if you have the new iPhone, hey, you're good to go. Or, oh, you have an iPad, oh, it's a couple years old, that's okay. The iPad was really expensive. You could still have access to this new AI stuff. Oh, you only buy iPhones and you haven't bought one in 2 years, oh, you're screwed. That's basically me right now. I'm thinking that I might have to just get one, because I was like, you know, should I wait for some review videos or something? It's like, I want to bring my audience these, like, especially if it's good, I really want to talk about it and make videos on it. So I might just pull the trigger and at least get the new iPhone, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like at the end of the day, running inference is just very computationally expensive. So you either have to upgrade and have a very powerful chip on your local device if you want local, or it has to go up to the cloud, and then Apple has to front that bill, or Azure or someone. So it doesn't seem to me like it's just a situation where they're just like, oh, I'm just making you upgrade because I artificially slowed down the software or something. We just know that this technology is difficult.
No, definitely.
And, you know, waiting for like tokens to be pulled out of Llama is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all hinging on like the privacy, right? Because it's like, oh, you know, we can't just go ping the ChatGPT servers all the time. It's like we want it to be our own private servers, our own private ecosystem. So I think it's really all hinging on that privacy. And fair enough. I mean, that's a really big concern, especially with the latest Windows updates that we saw announced, right? Like a few weeks back.
I have an image here.
Oh wait, we have a chat. Neat.
Check it out. So Matt sent me a link on Discord. Sorry for covering up everyone's faces, but you know, it is what it is. We'll move it around so it's fair. But basically here, this is a screenshot.
So we can see it.
This is a screenshot of apple.com/apple-intelligence. So apple.com/apple-intelligence, and you have an overview of everything, all the future features. Ha! Now they're covered up, Matt. Look at that. This is better, isn't it? There's also the ChatGPT innovation. I'll leave a link in the chat here, okay, for everybody to check this out. But basically, these are the various compatibilities. As you can see, everything that has a M processor is fine, and it's coming in fall. Those are kind of the most important parts, and it's English only for now, obviously.
I wonder if it'll kill battery.
Regular iPhone. There's like, it's only the Pros. Is that?
Oh, really?
Oh, that's true. It's a good point.
Huh.
It's almost like they
point.
planned it from the beginning.
Look at
Right?
that.
That's what it feels like, but it just fell into place for them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a compute reason for this, but yeah, it sounds like if you've got a laptop or an iPad, you're straight. But they really want you to upgrade your iPhone to use AI.
Yeah,
for everyone else.
So
that's what I'm saying. It rewards the more
iPhone.
dedicated Apple user.
Yeah, literally only one iPhone out of, I don't know, the hundreds models at this point. We can see. Yeah, that's an interesting catch, huh?
I'm trying to look like I'm leaning over.
So everybody who bought an iPhone with like max storage for $1,000 but didn't bother with the Pro this year is gonna have to upgrade again.
Just another reason that people are going to want to get the Pro, though.
Laughing in Apple stock, Rich.
We'll see what the iPhone announcement is, though, later in the year, right? In September, we'll see if the new, basic iPhone is going to get access.
Yeah, probably. I bet, my guess would
probably
be
have
all
the
of their,
A17.
yeah, the whole setup, the whole lineup is gonna get it.
Yeah, I imagine.
That's interesting.
Did anybody look at the Apple stock? Did it go up at all? Like, what does the market think about the announcement?
It was down pre-announcement. I definitely got in a little bit to take advantage of the jitters. Let's see how it's doing now.
It's down 2% today.
Yeah.
Still down? Oh,
that's surprising to me.
Analysts aren't impressed.
Yeah.
Wow,
really? What did they expect?
I don't know. That seems short-sighted to me.
They hoped for 4.0 Siri integration. I mean, that was kind of my expectation, to be honest.
It seems like it kind of already has it, though. Like it's just going to ask you if it can go ping ChatGPT for this specific thing, right? I don't know. Again, it's the reviews, like the MKBHD review. That's probably going to set you straight on like, okay, does this suck or does it work as they?
And move the stock price up or down depending on how he.
How
he rules.
He owns the stock market now.
What's funny, the other thing that I'm thinking with all the local stuff too is like I can actually see come fall when it releases like the whole like I can see a heat gate happening with iPhones overheating as well. We'll see. I mean, obviously they do a very good job with hardware, but these like little things end up happening sometimes. So unforeseen things. I'll be curious to see if that happens.
If I sit down and play with like some of these AI features for like 2 hours, like how much battery is that going to kill?
Mm-hmm.
That's
going to be a lot. I mean, this stuff. I mean, you just think about those Blackwell servers and how much compute costs and how much heat it generates. I mean, they have the advantage. Like when I switched from my Intel to my Apple Silicon MacBook, I remember all of a sudden the fan stopped going on so much. So it might be a little hard for Microsoft to actually keep up with, and the Pixel and everything. But I mean, they have their own projects. But I do feel like Apple's got an advantage in how much battery it's going to take for compute.
You know what? I just had this thought too that now that you bring up the Blackwell chips, do you think this is kind of like a long game move for Apple to be like, okay, we don't really need to rely on NVIDIA? You know what I mean? Like, do you think that they're trying to be like, we're our own separate thing? We don't have to rely on NVIDIA. We don't have to rely on OpenAI. We don't have to rely on anybody. Especially as the silicon gets better.
Well, if it was Steve Jobs, it would be. Everything felt personal with him. I mean, the whole reason we have the M chips is a long history of him being pissed at people for not helping him when he had ideas and then having to kind of roll it out on his own. So maybe, but I don't know. Apple Silicon didn't feel like it was built to handle GPU type tasks in the first place, but it does seem very efficient and it does seem like they have an infrastructure there. So it's kind of 50-50 in my head.
I mean, speaking of 50-50, it's like half of like the smartphone market is, pretty much Apple, right? And so I wonder if this will head in a direction kind of like the Google search deal, where Google pays Apple like 18 to 20 million annually, billion, sorry, with a B, annually,
billion with me,
to be like the default search engine, right? And so I wonder, like, did OpenAI pay any money to Apple in this situation? Is it just like, purely a developer integration where there's no exchange of funds? I don't know. It's like, I think this is the part that's opaque, right? Like, maybe to Dylan's earlier point, some of these models that are on device are are basically OpenAI models that they are tightly controlling and running, but they're just calling it Apple Intelligence. But I feel like given their distribution advantage and the fact that one of the most monetizable like customer bases is iOS users, like iOS apps also monetize better than Android apps, like everyone's going to want to be here. And I think like Apple will have like various ways to make money. And so I don't think they'll go full independent. Now, the NVIDIA thing, I don't know. I feel like anyone who has to train state-of-the-art larger models, even if they are distilled later, need NVIDIA, right? Like, I think only Google's like started training on TPUs and stuff like that. Only some of their models are trained on TPUs. Like,
did you find it suspicious that they talked about $20 a month for like GPT Pro? Like, they're like, if you have a subscription for ChatGPT, it will like you'll get the same features on Siri. And
they talk about like memory,
about $20 a month.
Will they get like the App Store cut? Will they take the cut of everything? Like, well, I'm sure they do.
Oh, yeah.
That's another genius.
Yeah, Siri's going to be butting heads with the app on your phone. Like there's all these GPT apps now, and it's like, which ones are going to survive? Natural selection, right? Also, is the ChatGPT app going to be better than Siri? Probably still, right? For a while.
For a little while, it will be. I mean, I think that's why isn't that really essentially why this integration is happening, is because Siri wasn't up to spec and they were kind of leaning on, I'd be curious to see. I think the integration between all of the stuff that you're doing in the Apple ecosystem will work pretty well with Siri. But if you start asking it things like, GPT-ish things, like that's when you're going to run into it, like kicking out to ChatGPT. And they needed that in order to have new Siri work, essentially. So
if you go back in time, Siri was just an app. It was an independent company. They built a voice app, and it was in the Android marketplace, and it was on Microsoft had an app store back then for their phone system, and it was on Apple. And then the company got into a bidding war, and Steve Jobs himself like negotiated that with Siri and thought he paid too much. But the whole point was that app couldn't get to its full potential until it had deeper integration into the system. So it seems like exactly the same thing, where you can't just have a ChatGPT app compete with Siri, because Siri is going to be able to go deep into your context in a way that the app's just going to be limited. So
right. But will Siri talk to any of my Google stuff? Right.
Can ChatGPT talk to your Siri stuff as well? That's the other question. That if you run into a no question that you're asking Siri, and then it kicks out to ChatGPT, can ChatGPT then, access the Siri information? I doubt it, but.
Right.
I just realized something. They mentioned that ChatGPT access is going to be completely free on the iPhone, right?
Yes.
With the integration. How does that work? Free ChatGPT. I suppose it's going to be for all, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Shipping that to a billion people.
ChatGPT is free now, right?
Yeah,
a billion people. There has to be some exchange of funds there. Yeah,
10 messages per like 3 hours or something. It's like you can start a conversation and you can pack it up again.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I don't.
How is that?
Well, I think maybe Microsoft stock went through the roof today.
I think they said something along the lines of, but paid ChatGPT users will have access to additional features. So I don't know if there's anything,
right? Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. What does that mean?
It might be the same limits. Like GPT 4.0 is free right now for the free users. It might be just the same exact thing as that. I wouldn't be surprised.
But to Igor's point, it is very throttled, right? Like, so, I mean, that's a damn good point. And like to Tim's and Dylan's earlier point, if you are, let's say, like trying to do some crazy, text message response that requires GPT-4, what from your semantic index will, ChatGPT get access to, I think is an open question. One other thing, I think Kai Gotti mentions a good point. Yeah. that, again, for the US-centric persons, Apple is less than 30% market share. That is true. Especially in the US, it's neck and neck. Globally, Android is way bigger. That said, if you go look at global revenue, it is 68.13% is iPhone and 31.87% is Android. So a lion's share of the money, like literally that same ratio is made on Apple. So it's like, if you're a developer that wants to make money, you can't not be on Apple. And so I think like everyone who's going to be doing AI stuff like kind of has to now. Otherwise, you're leaving a lot of Skrilla on the table. Then again, like there's a small group of early adopters today. Perhaps the people watching this are totally down to pay $20 a month here and then like switch to another thing. But like most people like don't do that. I feel like there's so many people who just still haven't even tried GPT-4.
AI for the rest of us. AI for the rest of us.
That's a good.
For the rich. AI for the rich
For
people.
the rest of us who can afford $1,500 phones.
That's like what they really mean.
Exactly.
Well, to be fair, it's a billion people, no?
It's our AI.
Yeah. There's a great question here from Larry. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you think the Apple Intelligence will affect your current workflows? I would extend this today. Let's just go around here and maybe Matt with Pro, what you think, man? Like if you had this today, all the features that we just saw, how much would this influence your day? 10 being so like it changes everything. 1 being like I don't even.
I'd probably say like a 4 or a 5 because I think I'd have to switch things over. Like I said, I'm not a huge Apple user right now, so it's like I use Google Calendar. I use actually the Notion calendar as well that connects to the Google Calendar. I use my own separate AI stuff, and I use my ChatGPT a lot, and I don't really use it on my phone to be honest. So I would say a 4 right now. It would probably just help me, set timers, do some really like basic stuff, have a little bit of fun with the Genmojis and stuff. But I don't know. I'd have to play around with it and see if it's worth changing everything else I do on my PC, for example, to make it compatible with the phone, if that's even possible. Because I'd like to have everything integrated, saying like, okay, my phone can talk to my PC, my PC can talk to my phone, so I know what's going on no matter where I am.
Okay, great answer. Tim, what about you? You're an Apple native user, all Apple just like me. What do you make of that? How would it affect your day and workflow today?
I mean, my hope is, obviously we'll have to see when we get a hold of it, that it can finally become the virtual assistant, like, my girl Friday that I've been waiting for all of these AI things to be. I was really hopeful when, Google was like Gemini Pro and you'll be able to do like, it'll be able to schedule like your life. And then, when you try Gemini Pro, it was like, I can't access your calendar. It's like, why can't you access my calendar? You see my email here, make me an appointment. And it's like, nah, I can't do that. So I'm really hoping that this is just able to, the summarize your emails, all of that stuff, contextually understand your emails. Will it be able to, also see that, I got an email from my dentist for 3:30 on June 6th, like, and then put a tentative date into, my calendar for that, like dumb stuff like that. That's the stuff that I really need AI to, I don't need help with scripting. I don't need help with editing. I don't like those are.
It's the small things.
It's the small things, like day-to-day life trip up stuff. My wife texted me and told me to take the clothes out of the dryer, and then 4 hours later I'm getting yelled at because I forgot. That's what I need Siri for. I need Siri to be like, did you take the clothes out of the dryer, dummy?
Yeah. So it seems reasonable to assume that most of the things that you just pointed out there would work flawlessly. I mean, the email summaries, I'm looking forward to that. And a few more things you mentioned there should all work without a doubt. So how would you rate it on a scale from 1 to 10? 1 being like, I won't even use it. 10 being like, this is going to change my life.
I mean, it's hard to say if it works the way that I want it to, the way that it should work in the Apple, in that Apple way of it just works, then, then it's a 9 or a 10. Like if it just ends up mid, then it's a 5. If it comes in completely broken, we're at 2 and 1. So I don't think it'll be that bad though. I really think I think it's going to middle out somewhere around 7, 6 or 7 when it first comes out. And I'm going to have very high expectations of what it should be able to do. And it's not going to be able to accomplish those things. And it's kind of like all of the any piece of technology. It's like we're going to promise you the moon. It comes out, it kind of works, and then as time goes on, you don't notice, but suddenly one night, or not one night, it's over the course of like a year, it suddenly does start working, but it just doesn't have that wow factor anymore because it's it's like you should have been doing this from the start. So that was pretty much a lot of the Apple presentation, in my opinion. So.
Fair enough, but look, not to be too much of an Apple fanboy, although I definitely am. I think if they stand for one thing, it's that if they ship something, it actually works, as opposed to many other companies announcing things and then it not working. Mm-hmm. I personally don't have a doubt that all of these small features across their OS, like summarizations and the UI integrations with Siri and the image generator and the Genmojis, I think those are going to just work perfectly because it's Apple.
I have a lot more faith in Apple being able to pull this off than Google. So,
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, great.
That's why it's so exciting.
I mean, I always feel like I'm a Debbie Downer on these things, going like, oh yeah, that's great, but I'm not really that.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, that caveat is good. It's like,
says the person with all Apple devices in his house.
I know, it's just funny.
No, that's good. So if it works,
living a good life.
Offended by anytime somebody calls me an Apple fan, it's like I have all the Apple products, so I can complain about them.
So great. So you're giving it a 6 to 7 if it works. Fair enough. Dylan, what do you think?
If it works, then I'm giving it a 9 to 10. Where I think it's going to come in is somewhere around. I'll upgrade it. I think it's going to come into about a 7, a solid 7. I think it's where it's going to start off at when it drops. I will be happily surprised if it comes in at the full 9 to 10 though.
Okay. Yeah. Dylan, what do you think?
Yeah, so my excitement for where it's going is pretty high, but I mean, realistically, for all the excitement I had, it did kind of make me think that it's probably only around the margins, the edges of my actual work life that it can help. So probably only like 2%, like 10 to 20% would be pretty impressive. But what I need help with is searching the internet for like AI news. I need help with editing. It's not going to bring up Final Cut for me. It's not going to like click around a million times a day to like make my video right. Maybe it can help me with posting. Maybe it can help me with some logistics, traveling, or emails. But finding entertaining stuff to talk about, thinking through what I want to say is like what I'm spending like most of the majority of my day every day doing. So it's not going to help me with that yet. Maybe brainstorming a little, but I'm going to give it a probably 20% to 2% impact, 20% impact.
Damn, that's lower than I was expecting you to go.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I felt bad going like 5 to 6. Like Dylan's over there with that 2.
Well, is it like percentages, right? Is it going to do 100% of my life and make it automated? I'd give it a 10. I don't know. Excitement though, it's probably more like 7 or 8. I think it's amazing tech. I can't wait to play with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dylan, do you use Perplexity? Good question from Helm.
Yeah, I mean, not robustly, and not like the way David Shapiro does, but like I do it a little bit. Yeah, it's a go-to tool.
Okay. All right.
But to those who use Perplexity, by the way, is it worth jumping up into Perplexity Pro? I use it on the free. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Really?
Like a gazillion %. And the fact that you can choose Claude, Opus, and GPT-4o or whatever, I think is amazing. Like, it's become my jumping off point for doing research now. Like, it's so nice. Yeah, I think it's like thoroughly underrated. I've even been playing with their new Threads feature that obviously Forbes. Yeah. There's been some controversy with Forbes happening. I feel like that could drastically automate people's like blog writing and newsletter generation type stuff. It's there's the dragon eats tail scenario. It's like, wait, we're using Wikipedia data to make something that replaces Wikipedia. This feels weird, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
definitely worth the upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, I've been very much flirting with the free version a lot lately, and like even it's now my go-to on my phone on mobile, and I've been considering hopping up to the Pro just to see, but I knew this esteemed panel would have the answer for me.
I don't use the Pro. I don't use the Pro either, so I think I'm missing out on it. And I'm subscribed to Gemini and Claude and OpenAI, and I'm just like cut and pasting all day, every day. It's not great.
So much cut and pasting. So much.
Much. On a side note, I've been dreaming about a keyboard with like a dedicated cut and paste. I'm sick of like holding Command while I press C. I'm like these 2 fingers are just like
Stream Deck.
What's my life about?
You can have a Stream Deck with 2 custom buttons.
That's true.
I will just cut and paste 2 big buttons. I'll slam down on both sides.
Yeah, like one.
Matt Wolf gives a +1 for paid perplexity.
Yeah, this seems to be the consensus. I hear this so often in conversations these days, just randomly come up. Like people are really excited about Perplexity Pro.
Really?
This is like it's the one tool that keeps coming up more and more. Over the last 2 weeks, I just have it come up regularly in these conversations, and we have multiple people here in chat kind of seconding that. So, not sponsored, but I'm subbed myself. It is great if you're doing like
the other one I'll shout out because it started like around the same time for me was Perplexity and the Arc browser. I switched over to Arc browser, so anybody that's listening, I recommend to try just giving it a shot, just trying out Arc browser. It's filled with like tiny little features. Again, not sponsored. This is just something that I kind of like. That it actually it closes your tabs after 24 hours, and I'm notoriously like I've got like 700 tabs open. But once every 24 hours, it's just like we're gonna close them all. And I'm like, and you're never like, oh yeah, that's right, I need to get back to that. Like it's just it's there in your history if you need it. But like little quality of life things like that, I really find the Arc browser is pretty great for. So
yeah.
Do you guys think ChatGPT is gonna? Well, I should hear your 1 through 10, but I'm curious if the servers on Azure, do you think they're gonna get broken as soon as Apple releases this update? Like, I mean, think of how many more queries it's gonna get. Like, I hope they're ready for that.
There has to be some exchange of money in the back there, right? It's like how classic Microsoft benefits gets to reap the fruits from Apple somehow from this too. It's like
that's what I was saying. Like, what if their stock went through the roof today because they're like, oh, you're going to use their infrastructure?
Great question, actually.
Anyways, but we should get your how productive you think the tool's going to be. I feel like I cut you off on that.
I feel like for me, it's I don't know if it's going to be as useful. Like the summarization and all that stuff. I don't know if my desktop workflow is going to change, but I think on iPhone and iPad, I feel like it's going to get a huge boost. I'm really excited about the semantic index thing, right? Like I love using Google Photos primarily because it's got really good semantic search and you can find those images that you're looking for. And it works okay for video. And the fact that I can do that now, not just across photos, but all of my messages, emails, like Safari browser tabs, I think is super exciting. There was like other, to use Tim's term, like the quality of life stuff that I really enjoyed. Like I've always wanted to use Arc browser, but I use Safari on obviously on iPhone and iPad, and they had this other feature. What did they call it? Like an extension to basically article view, where they get rid of all the ads and stuff like that. I don't know. It's like being able to, highlights powered by AI on each page. Basically like Arc, it felt a little bit like Reader View got a huge boost. And so it gives me jumping off points for like, hey, we detected a location. You click on it and opens up the map app. Or like just taming notifications. I think every WWDC for the last several years, people bring up just like the clusterfuck that is your like Apple notifications, right? It's just like, it's kind of insane, like how cluttered it can be. And if you can have an AI like prioritize some of that stuff for you, like if I have do not disturb on, like show me the most important stuff. Hey, can you call me back? This is urgent. Or your dish, like did you put the clothes in the dryer? Example, Tim. Like I'm super excited about that. Maybe I'll use the text summarization feature, but as far as like image generation goes, I don't know if I'll use it. Emojis kind of seem like fun. Yeah. And if the action stuff is good, oh my God, like because there's like I primarily Lyft and Uber everywhere. If I can do things that like will do 2 or 3 things for me, like in context while I'm out and about, like that might also be a reason. Like one of the last takeaways I'll share is like I was kind of, this is the first time I wear a Whoop band and then a freaking good old $80 G-Shock, and I was like, yo, is this like finally the time that I go get my Apple Watch? Because now I can actually use it to do a lot of interesting things. Like note dictation, transcription now being on device. That's kind of cool. If it's anything like Whisper class transcription, like for a lot of video ideation stuff, that's awesome. And so like, and plus they had that like exercise load kind of feature exactly like Whoop, where it'll basically figure out how intensive a workout you had and let you chart that over time. I'm excited about like Apple allowing us to query that health data too with AI. Cause like the Whoop app has GPT-4 integrated and you can ask it like, why was my recovery bad? Like when was my recovery good? And it'll kind of like pull up some stats from your history, which I think is cool. And obviously I've always felt squeamish about like, holy crap, am I just giving OpenAI all my like really sensitive health data? How the hell is this happening? So I'm excited for this to bring AI into all the non-work things that I do or things that I do on mobile computing devices. And so I don't know, I'll probably give it a 7 or 8 in that regard. It feels like better than anything else. Like I've got a Pixel, I've used the Gemini thing. I agree with most people. Like sometimes it'll make the Google Calendar thing. Sometimes it kind of sucks at that. And like, if this is anywhere close to reliable, like it'll be a solid 7 or 8 in my book.
Nice. That's a very, very solid rating. And just to, like, you weren't here in the first minutes where we talked about the devices that we use. Just to be clear, what do you use as your phone? What do you use as your workstation?
iPhone 15 Pro for my phone. I've got an iPad 2020, which I think is an M1, the 13 Pro. I've got a Mac Studio, which I use for a lot of video and things like that. But I also have like a Beast Threadripper with an RTX 6000 for Unreal, Maya, all the 3D stuff.
All right, all right. By the way, I'm building a PC for Unreal. I need to pick your brain a little bit. I'll slide into your Twitter DMs very soon here.
Good.
Okay, so just to round this out, I'll briefly give my take. I mean, a little bit of context. I always have been kind of a Apple, you know, I don't know if fanboy is the right word, but I just like to worry about other things. I like to be creative. I like to create stuff. And I've always found, I've had both Windows and Mac, and I've just always found that the Mac has been a little less in the way when I'm trying to do something new. You know, great examples is just drivers, like just installing drivers. So for those reasons, I'm kind of like an Apple fan. And with an iPhone on the table, a Mac Mini here, a MacBook over there, and the iPad laying on the table also, if this stuff works as promised, which, as I stated, I think it will, you know, I wouldn't doubt the fact that their Genmojis are going to be as they look. I wouldn't doubt the fact that the email summaries instead of the first line of the email, which is like, that's just such an obvious thing that I never thought of. But yeah, obviously I want the summary there, not the first line that, by the way, the creator of the email gets to choose. Like, how is, you know, just going to use that to clickbait you. I want the summary. I want the content. All of that is, I
all
think,
the
fantastic.
Newsletter people are like, holy fuck, no, my newsletter. And like,
yeah, true. Yeah, here's 15 more AI updates in this newsletter. That's going to be the summary every single day. But one thing in particular got me really excited, and this is why I would land at somewhere around the 8. I think I won't say 7 because 7 is kind of a nothing number, right? Like it's in between. But I think if the reduce interruptions thing plus the notification management works as expected, that's gonna like change my life. And I don't think I'm overstating that. I'm somebody who's like easily overwhelmed by too many interactions and too many like responsibilities with calendar and everything. That's why I have to be like careful in like crafting my days. And what that usually looks like is I pick a thing I focus on and then I turn on the do not disturb mode. Now this causes complications in my life with family and close friends that are just I don't want to like bring up here, but essentially a family member of mine recently brought up of like, yeah, but what if like I'm in trouble? Like I'm never ever gonna be able to call you because you're always on. And I'm like, that's a fair point. And then yeah, you can set exceptions, but that doesn't really work because then like they're just completely excluded. If I could have just this level of local AI assistant manage the notifications and figure out if like the message from my grandpa is actually urgent or not, that's huge in my books. And summarizing the notifications and looking at my schedule and maybe setting it up in a way where, you know, I set my work hours as I have now, and it realizes that, okay, I'm in like full work mode and my calendar is full for this day. So maybe let's just let through the top 5% of the notifications. And then in a case like this, now I had to mute everything. I have this on Do Not Disturb, my phone on Do Not Disturb. If anything is happening in the world right now, I'm locked out. If there could be an AI assistant that manages that well, which they seem to have promised with the reduce interruptions feature, which is kind of a middle ground between just being, you know, all notification fire hose on your home screen turned on versus Do Not Disturb, which is just everything silenced out. I'm a fan. So for those reasons, I'll give it an 8. I think if all of that integrates, if the reduced notifications thing works perfectly, I think it's even a 9. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think the image generation stuff is not really changing anything. All of us can use it and don't use it on a daily basis. I think there's like many like niche use cases if you're creating like a business branding package, etc. We can talk about all that, but basically I don't think it's gonna change much. I don't think many people are gonna be using that. But interruptions and like the AI assistant,
I will say,
big.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut in there. I will say for like the generative AI integration, I think that's like a really great introduction for a lot of people who maybe don't know much about AI or aren't familiar with it. Like if I'm trying to introduce my family members who are maybe a little bit older to AI, that's like one of the things that I would start with. So I think that's like a part of the reason that they highlight it so much. For us power users, not really a big deal, but I think for the general audience, it's kind of a great introduction. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, perfect. That was my entire point. No, yeah. I agree.
You know what else? You know what else is interesting, Igor? Is like maybe we have to. This just thought occurred to me while you were talking, but it's like maybe instead of thinking about a button like an on or off or a I'm in like sleep mode or no notification mode, it's just got to be even us being intelligent with the system. Like you might need to say like I'm going to do some really important work. Can you take care of my messages? And it's just going to know what to do. And if somebody says there's an emergency, it comes through, it might actually reply on your behalf to someone and be like, he's busy right now. Is this that important? And then if they say yes, then it notifies you. You know, it's not just about us thinking about our buttons and our walls, but
that right there.
Like a friend, like a human, an assistant.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, let's say somebody on the team kind of reaches out to me, is like, hey Igor, have you like, created those thumbnail images yet? Or like, have you updated the edit or something? And then, the factual information would be, yes, it's in the Dropbox. Here's the link, right? That's what I would reply. But because I'm on Do Not Disturb and I'm working on something else, maybe I'm recording a video, I won't be able to forward that. So yeah, exactly what you just said there. Going a step further, where the assistant actually doesn't just manage the notifications, but it resolves all the ones that it can. As in, when I get that Slack message, I want the AI assistant to reply, hey, Igor's, AI assistant here. Here's the link to the file that you probably mean. He's on D&D right now. That's the dream. That's a 10.
Yeah.
But that's
or maybe it even physically notices that you're in your work office. So like work stuff comes through and personal doesn't. And at 5 o'clock it sees you get in your car and start driving home. And then when you get home, messages show up and work ones get muted.
Yeah. It looks at your camera. It's like, oh, he's watching a movie right now. Don't bother him. He really doesn't like that.
Well, if you're completely in the Apple ecosystem, then your watch knows if you've been sitting and your heart rate has been resting. So it's like, get back to work.
Oh my God.
Sitting there watching TV.
Oh my God. So many funny situations.
Is it ambient intelligence or is it ubiquitous surveillance?
They could do it.
Yeah. It's really not that much
like
of a stretch from
Cyborg.
here.
Yeah, just wait till my girlfriend's in a good mood and then ask her if she wants to go get a dinner, and it's like, okay, I'll wait. I'll
exactly.
The heart rate.
His girl seems to be very agitated right now. This is a terrible time.
I don't
to
recommend
be calling.
sending the message.
I understand it's an emergency, but like it's not this much of an emergency. So please wait. It's crazy. I mean, it's not much of a stretch at this point.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Long term, we got to think about it for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Long term, we got to think about it while we summon it into every aspect of our life. I think like that ship has sailed, right? Like semantic index to me is like, oh yeah, they're just doing what Microsoft wanted to do, and now Microsoft was forced to make opt-in. Semantic indexes, you're opted in. Like there's gonna be, it's like, I have many thoughts on this, but let's not digress. Yeah,
well, the semantic if anything that's like the lock on the walled garden, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like once, essentially it has an understanding of your entire like life ecosystem, your entire digital life. Like, I mean, to Matt's point, like, like you want to hop into this, like once you're in, good luck getting out.
Yeah. It's wild. My God, my brain is going crazy. I'm seeing all these comments and suggestions. For example, like this one by Jan here, and then it blocks all calls that raise your blood pressure. What if right? What if your phone?
Oh my God.
Right? Like, what if you like have your phone therapy session Monday mornings, and then like like Tim calls and Tim, every time Tim calls, he like, I don't know, raises your blood pressure for some reason, and then all of a sudden, which is like a terrible example because the Tim is like the most like zen and relaxed type of dude. But like, imagine that's the case, and then like Tim gets a reply of like, sorry, Tim, but like it's not good for Igor's mental health if you're calling him like this during the work day. We'll reconvene later. Like,
I mean, changing it.
I mean, I sort of wonder if has anybody been getting a lot of like the pig farming texts You know, they
No.
oh yeah, I mean, you guys know what I'm talking about.
What the heck? Pig farming.
That's the whole thing where you get a text that's just like hey sweetie, did you get that picture I sent you? And you're like, what? And then, you know, oh sorry, wrong number. But it's actually like some, you know, some scammer fisher in Indonesia or somewhere that's like that's trying to, it's a lot of like, did you get me that did you get me the Penske file by 5 o'clock? And then you're like, what? Like, I don't even work for you. And then, you know, that turns into the scam. But I wonder if you know, all of this is because it's, you know, semantically aware of all of this stuff, if that helps block any of those things. You know, just anything from robocalls to spam calls to spam texts, that would be a significant time saver for me. I don't know what lists I'm on, but I'm constantly getting them now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can learn what you block too. Like if it learns what you block, it might get smarter at blocking. And if you want to say to somebody like in a mean, like you could be really short with your message, spell it wrong, and be like, "Hey, like you're in trouble," and then it can like, but say that in a nice way, and then it makes a really nice comment for you on behalf. So it knows how to talk to people.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Even if
there's got to be like
said something interesting about like building off this, you know, kind of biometric tracking thing about Neuralink. But I don't know if y'all saw the Apple patent for being able to use just like AirPod style earbuds to non-invasively, you know, kind of coarsely read your mind. Like that tech exists. Control Labs and Meta's working on it too. And Apple's got some really crazy patents for the Vision Pro where they can flash audiovisual patterns in a fashion that's undiscernible to the user to classify their emotional state and then change the UI accordingly. So I think this like passive sensing stuff could be, if you control your like objective functions for this, it could be like pretty freaking amazing. You know, on the other end, it's like you're kind of in this very controllable, influenceable bubble, right? So I think we'll see maybe both futures play out where you've got the, I don't know, the pay to play Apple version, which is going to like you define what you want to do. And then like the super cheap Meta version that, I don't know, suddenly makes you extremely thirsty for Diet Coke every time you use this application. You're like, oh, I don't know what happened here.
Interesting.
I don't know. There's got to be a sweet spot for how much the AI is going to be able to control your life and do things for you, because you don't want to be entirely reliant on it, and you don't want it making all of your decisions for you, right? I mean, part of the fun of life is having spontaneous things happen and having unexpected, you know, having to make unexpected decisions. So if you just have an AI managing your whole life based on your bank account numbers, your blood pressure, all this data, like, you know, it kind of takes some of the fun away, right?
But what if I took your smartphone away? Isn't your phone already doing a bunch of that?
Right. No, I know exactly. That's what I'm saying. Is like, I think that that is still true to a degree. Like if you took my smartphone away, I think that at least me personally, there's some benefits being lost. There's some sort of a trade-off there. And people talk about that. Like even my parents will talk about that, and they were born in the 70s. So, you know, like back before phones, you know, we used to talk way more.
Like when everyone lost their mind when ChatGPT and all the other chatbots were down in the morning, it's like, wait, I have to write my own code right now. It's like, what? I have to go back to Stack Overflow? Like it's freaking 2018.
It's just so interesting. Like, where does it end, right? Like, where does it end? Does it end with like controlling your whole life for you and managing every aspect of it? Like, part of life is making decisions, or does it turn into this beautiful creative blossom where it's like I can make all of my own decisions that I want to make, and all the things I don't care about are just handled for me?
I think
so crazy.
This is going to be extremely personal, way more personal than phones or, you know, the entire wave that the internet brought caused. Is I think this is going to be so personalized. We're all very different with different needs, and the hardware is standardized. We all have different apps on our home screen, but this is just going to, you know, understand your moods. It's going to it's gonna have access to your vitals, right? It's just a question of time. It's just, it takes one relative that is like, oh, my life changed in this and this way because I have like my therapist has access to the data, and like my doctor, and this emergency happened last week and they just saved me earlier, and plus I don't manage my calendar anymore and I can just shut off anytime. My AI replies to everything anyway. I can live in peace. All of a sudden the whole family adopts it. It's gonna be super personal, and I think it's gonna happen as with most adoption curves. The pendulum is gonna swing too far. We're going to be super hyped on how it's all being implemented and how much it can do. And then we're going to realize, just, you know, like with the web, just like with phones,
social
and
media,
social media, and TikTok in particular, gonna realize like, oh, that might have been a bit too much. Let's reel it back in, and maybe then the conversations pop up of like, how much should you be using it? You're gonna have people who are gonna be no AI, you know, like living in the woods, of course. All that, but we'll have to decide. I think the difference here is that we'll have way more agency over how we use it as opposed to some of the previous things. You're gonna get to set the level of personalization and how deep you want it to use it and integrate it. Now we have all the people who are like custom prompting here on this stream listening in, and I think this is gonna be a big change because we're gonna move from, you know, a few 100,000 people worldwide who are power users of this stuff to my grandma using it to rewrite her texts, right? Big deal.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Any closing thoughts?
I do have to leave here pretty soon, so I think closing thoughts would be
I think so too. I mean, yeah, it's almost 10 p.m. here in Europe. I still have to make that summary video.
So,
this is my summary video. I've decided I'm gonna. Everybody in the world, you're doing one. Matt, I presume you're doing one. Everybody's doing one. I'm tired, so I'm not gonna. This is my summary video.
Fair enough. I do that way too often.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is interesting. It's definitely. Let's just end on this. Like, how significant is this for mainstream adoption? You think of like AI overall, like because this is gonna put it into, you know, virtually every second person's in the second person device in the second first world. If you combine like Mac, iPad, and iPhone, right? Like in every room, around 40 to 50% of the people will have AI on their devices once this rolls out in fall, which is not far.
I mean, I think that this definitely is the, you know, the promise of what, you know, the Rabbit and the Humane and all of those other wearables had kind of hinted at. This is, you know, going to be it for real. And I think it's interesting because I think it's now everybody else is like Apple's going to set the pace, right, on this. And then everybody else, it's going to be the standard that everything else now has to meet or live up to. So, you know, we still haven't seen the other major piece of hardware that has not as of yet gotten a major AI upgrade is the Alexa. I mean, Alexas are all over the place. Like, but so now Alexa essentially has to live up to what Apple's going to, you know, what Apple's going to release. So it's interesting. I mean, I think I'm kind of glad that it's Apple, and it wasn't, say, you know, Meta that got out first, or maybe even Jeff and Amazon. So yeah, we'll see.
It's true. Apple's first.
Mm-hmm.
How often does that happen?
That's weird. It's very strange. It's so crazy because
Microsoft's
like,
just crying in the corner. It's like, wait, we had so much stuff last year, but they don't have smartphone, right? Like, and it's a huge missing piece.
It feels like this slow buildup over time, like with AI in the past 2 years as it becomes more and more mainstream. You know, OpenAI, ChatGPT, we hear some from Google and Meta AI, but now that Apple's at the table, it's like, okay, it's complete. Everyone, like Apple hasn't even mentioned AI until today, and now they're talking about it. So everyone's at the table, and we have a much clearer view of where things are headed now that Apple's announced what they're announcing. Because, like Tim said, everyone's got to maintain up to Apple's, you know, what they're going to deliver. Apple is very competitive, so I think that overall, it's going to make. This is like the beginning of mainstream AI. I think that you can kind of define that almost like this is where that kind of begins, because Apple has come to the table. They're one of the biggest players, and now everyone's here.
This announcement changes everything. I can see the YouTube title right there already.
Shocking the industry.
No.
Shocked the entire industry.
But this time for real, though. I think it is. I totally agree with what Matt's saying. It's like,
it's true.
It's like, you know, what is ChatGPT's like user, but like 100 or 200 million users, like to go from that, like these are almost super users. Yeah. Or like kids who are like plagiarizing their homework or whatever. But like for the average person to use it, to become a daily active user of AI, that like is going to happen now. And I wonder if it'll be a gateway drug for a lot of people that were too afraid or for ethical reasons, we didn't want to dabble with any kind of AI. Like, they'll use summarization, they'll use image generation, they'll do semantic search, they'll use like awesome voice dictation and transcription, and then go try more powerful variants, right? Like, oh, let me go play with Midjourney now that I've figured this out because I want to try different styles when I'm making my keynote presentation. And honestly, the same thing with text writing. Like, and I think, yeah, Apple's got the layup right now with OpenAI, but it sounds like the language they use means like Claude and Gemini and some other models will be on the horizon. And yeah, it's like it's AI for everyone else is probably right, but it'll be an amazing gateway drug to get folks into some of the other apps that maybe this group uses every day.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely thinking platform, which is like really one of the best ways to be. Like platform is the thought process. But to me, it kind of like if you go back to 1900 or something, and it was like everyone's using like horses, right? Like just straight up horse-drawn carriages, and they're like, okay, this car is going to be a big thing. It's going to be like a big world changer, but we have to like replace our streets, and we have to get people to feel safe in them, and the technology needs to like move forward and forward. It feels like maybe this app intent framework coming from a major company like Apple that has a huge user base is kind of like the Model T, or like the first car that could sort of be manufactured and people started to trust. And over in the wings, there's stuff that Microsoft was a little more innovative, but it doesn't feel like it's ready to like roll out into Windows yet. And Google certainly could do something like the app intent framework, but completely on the cloud with your Google Docs and all of the other tools that we use for business. And that could be a huge thing. But this to me feels like that just Model T moment. And, it's not like the Model T sold like crazy the first year, but, it quickly caught on and quickly became a serious player.
Just one word that differentiates all those examples from what Apple announced: subscriptions. They're all, Copilot in 365, Copilot for enterprise, Gemini in Google Docs, all of them cost $20-$30 per seat. This is just gonna be there. Gonna be writing a message and it's just there.
Well, so if you pay up front and you buy, like if you pay up front and get hardware that can run this, that's your bill. Like you're gonna put electricity in your phone, you're gonna run your own computational model. But then of course, if you are sending if you have an older iPhone and you have to send all your requests up to the Apple Silicon server, their new private cloud, then you probably will be paying a monthly fee for iCloud or something like that. So just depends on.
They never announced that though, It's like that's why I'm saying they definitely want you to upgrade to the new things. Like they're not even going to give you the chance.
Yeah, that's true.
There definitely is. I think it's funny on the iCloud part because I think that was they did message this is free. Every user of iOS 18, it's free. But you're absolutely right because that personal cloud, which is probably going to be, I mean, yeah, of course you're going to have to upgrade to the, and they are very good with slowly rolling you into that. Cause I went from like, I'm never paying for it to like, I'll do the 99-cent one to like, I'll do the $5 one. Like, I guess I'm up to like $20 now paying Apple because I have too many photos in my iPhotos that I have to take up to iCloud. So yeah, no, I mean, they've got their ways of extracting money from you.
Yeah. All right. Then I believe that wraps it up. What a fantastic discussion. I mean, we went for almost 90 minutes here. Thank you so much to Bilawal for joining us for the first time here on the AI YouTube community. Yeah, great discussion. For anybody who's new here, we're doing this once every 2 weeks now. And yeah, rotating guests. We're probably just not going to announce the guests. It's going to be a bit of a surprise. It's kind of hard to coordinate a bunch of AI YouTubers, let me tell you that. but it's a blast when we do these reactions after big events. And other than that, just thank you for being here. Thank you for discussing this with every single one of us. And I believe that is it. Let's wrap this up here, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Right, thank you.
Good luck with the videos. And I have one more thing. I thought about my thumbnail for this one already. Do you want to hear what I'm doing? It's in the form of I'm doing Steve Jobs Igor.
Yes,
you heard it here first.
I'm ready. Yeah. I am ready.
Thumbnail text has to be and one more thing. I mean, you got to do it.
For sure. And one more thing.
Nice. Thanks for that. I'll test it. Great stuff. All right. This was really fun. Very insightful. Thanks for everybody in chats. Hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Go give Apple your money. Bye.
Yeah. All your Apple.